So today I thought I would talk about one of my favourite cards, actually, the Two of Swords. I love the Suit of Swords. I know some people might not, but the Suit of Swords, and to understand the Two of Swords, we need to look at the Suit of Swords. The Suit of Swords, I believe, is about our thoughts, our words, communication, our mind, and how we think. The whole suit is about that. And if you start to visualize each sword in the Suit of Swords as a thought and your mind, then suddenly the suit becomes a lot easier to understand. In the Two of Swords, this person has the swords sort of crossed, as it were, in what I would call a defensive or a holding position. Some people describe her as closed off or defensive. I don't know. I disagree. I think it's a defensive position. It's a strong position. It is guarding our heart space, yes. But you know what? Sometimes we need to do that. So I feel she has calmed her mind. I feel that there is, just looking at this card, there is a calmness to that. There is a placidness to it. It feels as if she is calming her mind. Maybe she's meditating. People also ask about the blindfold. I am quite convinced she put that blindfold on herself. Unlike perhaps the Eight of Swords. If we put a blindfold on ourselves, to me it means that we are listening to the inner voice. We are tuning in to ourselves and we are closing off the outer world. I have seen this card represent somebody in a relationship. It might be with a partner or a parent or a child or a boss who just says to me, I can't listen to it anymore. Sometimes I just need a break from all the busyness or the decision making or the chaos that's going on around me. Of course, I've also seen this crop up in relationships where somebody is ignoring the blindingly obvious. Somebody who is choosing not to acknowledge that their partner's having an affair or that their teenager is off the rails. So when it comes to putting on the blindfold, we need to really tune in. What is this card telling us? Is it telling us, do that, take a break, listen to your inner voice, trust that inner intuition? Or is it reminding you that actually it's time to take off the blindfold and connect to the wider world again? This idea of switching off the mind and tuning to the inner voice, to me, is really made clear by the water behind her, whether it's an ocean or whether it's a river or a lake, we don't know, but it's clearly quite a large body of ocean, and by the moon. And so to me, the moon and the ocean, they represent our intuitive self. They represent perhaps the whisper of your spirit guides or your unconscious or your dreams or your soul, however you express that. However, and I love this detail, she is sat on a very solid concrete block, and we can see very clearly two yellow shoes are sticking out underneath. To me, that shows me that she's grounded, that she's stable, and that she will take action when she chooses to. And for anyone who's looking at this and thinking it's a really feminine, perhaps a psychologically passive card, well, my comeback to that is, don't make fun of someone with two swords, specifically a woman. To fight with two swords takes immense skill. Firstly, you've got to have some level of ambidextrousness, which can be trained. It might be more normal if we're into our medieval or Lord of the Rings movies or whatever, Game of Thrones, to see somebody fighting with a sword for the attack and a shield for the defense. If you can really fight with two swords, and if you want a show of this, then look up the old Robin of Sherwood 1984 BBC ITV, I believe it is, TV show, where Nazir, played by Mark Ryan, fights with two swords, and it's phenomenal. To really fight with two swords, you have to be able to both attack and defend with both weapons. To me, that's power. She is passive in the fact that she is waiting and pausing, but don't mistake that for weakness. And to me, the one card that is totally reflected in this card is the High Priestess. And I know so many people love the High Priestess, but to me, the Two of Swords is a more everyday version of the High Priestess. I feel the connection because the High Priestess is also sat on this sort of concrete stool here, and we can see that clearly behind the pillars is the great body of water, and of course we have the moon connection as well. Often the Two of Swords will come up reminding you to take a break, to still your mind, to not overthink, to connect with your higher guidance, your intuition, whatever that might mean to you. The Two Swords is an interesting thing as well. This idea of being able to attack or defend on either side. I've often seen in readings the Two of Swords representing you might need to take one step back to be able to take two steps forward. That the logical answer isn't necessarily the right answer. That you might need to wait and understand the situation more empathically or intuitively. It's not always the best card to see in a relationship reading, as the High Priestess is not always the best card to see in a relationship reading, because it can suggest somebody is either feeling isolated or is isolating themselves or not engaging in the relationship. But it's a card I love. Maybe it's because that background reminds me of when I lived in Orkney. It's got a very sort of feel of Orkney there. Maybe it's because I find it a more personable card than the High Priestess, but with much of the same energy. But it's a big favourite of mine, and it often comes up for me when it's telling me, don't overthink it, take a break. Let your creative or your intuitive side problem solve this, because it will be much better that way.